UTA Flight 772 of the French airline Union de Transports Aériens was a scheduled international passenger flight operating from Brazzaville in the People's Republic of the Congo, via N'Djamena in Chad, to Charles de Gaulle Airport in Paris. On Tuesday 19 September 1989 the McDonnell Douglas DC-10 aircraft took off from N'Djamena International Airport at 13:13. 46 minutes later, at its cruising altitude of 10,700 meters, a bomb explosion caused UTA Flight 772 to break up over the Sahara Desert 450 kilometers east of Agadez in the southern Ra copyright of Niger. All 156 passengers and 14 crew members died. It is the deadliest aviation incident to occur in Niger and the fourth deadliest involving a DC-10, after Air New Zealand Flight 901. American Airlines Flight 191, and Turkish Airlines Flight 981. Aircraft: the aircraft, a McDonnell Douglas DC-10-30, registration N54629, serial number 46852, was manufactured in 1973. The 125th DC-10 off of the production line, the airframe had accumulated 60,276 flight hours over 14,777 flight cycles at the time of its hull loss. Victims. On the flight deck were Captain Georges Ravenno, as instructor. First Officer Jean-Pierre Hennequin in training. Safety Pilot Michel Cra copyright Tsar copyright. And Flight Engineer Alain Breikout. In the cabin were pursers Jean-Pierre Baschung and Michel Vasseur, along with flight attendants Alain Blanc, Laurence de Bory-Pinon, Martine Brett, Anne Kless, Nicole de Blicker, Ethory Lynn Noble, Gail Lugain, Veronique Morella, Jean-Pierre Maupassant. Among the passengers killed was Bonnie Pugh, wife of the American ambassador to Chad at the time, Robert L. Pugh. Chadian Planning Minister Mahamat Soumrilla was also aboard, bound for the annual meeting of the International Monetary Fund in Washington. The victims come from 18 different countries, the majority being French or Congolese nationals, 54 French, 48 nationals of People's Republic of Congo, 25 Chadians, 9 Italians, 7 Americans, 5 Cameroonians, 4 Britons, 3 nationals of Zaire, 3 Canadians, 2 Central Africans, 2 Malians, 2 Swiss, 1 Algerian, 1 Bolivian, 1 Belgian, 1 Greek, 1 Moroccan and 1 Senegalese. 8 of the fatalities were oil workers coming back from the completed drilling of the Combe 3 borehole in southern Chad. After the plane was bombed, Leonardo Leonardi, a spokesperson for the Italian embassy in Paris, said that the embassy believed that 6 Italians were on the flight. A spokesperson of the Friars Minor Capuchin religious order said that 2 members of the order were on board the aircraft. Investigation. An investigation commission of the International Civil Aviation Organization determined that a bomb placed in a container in location 13 or in the Ford cargo hold caused the destruction of the aircraft. The commission suggested that the most plausible hypothesis was for the bomb to have been inside the baggage loaded at Brazzaville Airport. Initial speculation over which groups might have been responsible for destroying UTA Flight 772 centered upon Islamic Jihad, who were quick to claim responsibility for the attack, and the secret Chadian resistance rebel group, which opposed President Hissène Habre copyright. 5 years previously, on March 10, 1984, a bomb destroyed another UTA aircraft from Brazzaville shortly after the DC-8 had landed at N'Djamena Airport. There were no fatalities on that occasion and those responsible were never identified. Wreckage of the aircraft was sent to France for forensic examination, where traces of the explosive PETN were found in the Ford cargo hold. Pieces of a dark grey Samsonite suitcase covered in a layer of PETN convinced the investigators that this was the source of the explosion. It had been loaded in Brazzaville. Trial in absentia, the investigators obtained a confession from one of the alleged terrorists, a Congolese opposition figure, who had helped recruit a fellow dissident to smuggle the bomb onto the aircraft. This confession led to charges being brought against 6 Libyans. French Judge Jean-Louis Bruguière identified them, as follows: Abdullah Sanossi, brother-in-law of Muammar Gaddafi, and deputy head of Libyan intelligence. Abdullah al-Azra, counselor at the Libyan embassy in Brazzaville. Ibrahim Naili and Arbaz Mujbar, explosives experts in the Libyan Secret Service. Issa Shabani, the secret agent who purchased the timer that allegedly triggered the bomb. And Abdul Salam Hamalda, Sanusi's right-hand man, who was said to have coordinated the attack. In 1999, the 6 Libyans were put on trial in the Paris Assize Court for the bombing of UTA Flight 772. Because Gaddafi would not allow their extradition to France, the 6 were tried in absentia and were convicted. On September 5, 2012, the country of Mauritania extradited Abdullah Sanusi to Libyan authorities. Sanusi is to be tried in Libya for crimes he allegedly committed during the time he was the close assistant to Gaddafi. Sanusi appeared in a Libyan court for a pre-trial hearing on September 19, 2013. On October 11, 2013, the International Criminal Court ruled that he can be tried in Libya and lifted their warrant. Alleged motive the motive usually attributed to Libya for the UTA Flight 772 bombing is that of revenge against the French for supporting Chad against the expansionist projects of Libya toward Chad. The Qadiana-Euro-Libyan conflict ended in disaster for Libya following the defeat at the Battle of Martin al-Sara in the 1987 Toyota War. Muammar Gaddafi was forced to accede to a ceasefire, ending his dreams of African and Arab dominance. Gaddafi blamed the defeat on French and U.S. aggression against Libya. Libyan compensation: the Paris court awarded the families of the UTA victims sums ranging from a 3,000 to a 30,000 depending on their relationship to the dead. Not content with this award, the French relatives group Les Familles du DC-10 signed an agreement on January 9, 2004 with the Gaddafi International Foundation for Charity Associations accepting a compensation payment of $170 million, or $1 million for each of the 170 UTA victims. By May 2007, it was reported that 95% of this compensation money had been distributed. However, the families of the 7 American victims refused to accept their $1 million awards and are pursuing the Libyan government through a federal court in Washington. On September 19, 2006, the court was asked to rule that the Libyan government and 6 of its agents were guilty of the destruction of UTA Flight 772 on September 19, 1989. Damages of more than $2 billion were claimed for the loss of life and the destruction of the DC-10 jet. In April 2007, D.C. District Judge Henry H. Kennedy found Libya directly responsible for the bombing and presided over a 3-day bench trial from August 13, 2007 to August 15, 2007. On January 15, 2008, Judge Kennedy issued an order awarding $6 billion in damages to the families and owners of the airliner. Libya has appealed this decision. In October 2008, Libya paid $1.5 billion into a fund which will be used to compensate relatives of the Lockerbie bombing victims. American victims of the 1986 Berlin discotheque bombing. American victims of the 1989 UTA Flight 772 bombing. And Libyan victims of the 1986 U.S. bombing of Tripoli and Benghazi. As a result, U.S. President George W. Bush signed an executive order restoring the Libyan government's immunity from terror-related lawsuits and dismissing all of the pending compensation cases in the U.S. Other statements: in Manipulations Africaines, published in February 2001, Pierre Parr copyright and investigated the sabotage of UTA Flight 772. He alleged that evidence pointed to Iran and Syria, but that due to political context, France and the United States tried to put the blame on Libya. He accuses Judge Jean-Louis Bruguiere of deliberately neglecting proof of Lebanon, Syria and Iran being involved to pursue only the Libyan trail. He also accused Thomas Thurman, a Federal Bureau of Investigation political operative, of fabricating false evidence against Libya in both the Pan Am Flight 103 and UTA Flight 772 sabotages. On July 18, 2011, former Libyan Foreign Minister Abdelrahman Shalom, who had defected from the Libyan government in March at the beginning of what would become the 2011 Libyan civil war, told Al Hayat that the Libyan government was responsible for the bombing of UTA Flight 772. He stated the Libyan security services blew up the plane. They believed that opposition leader Mohammed el-Maghrif was on board, but after the plane was blown up, it was found that he was not on the plane. He also claimed that the Lockerbie operation was more complex. The role of states and organizations has been discussed, and while the Libyan services were implicated, I do not think it was a purely Libyan operation. Memorial. In 2007 a memorial was created in the desert by Les Familles de l'Attentat du DC-10, an association of the victims' families. In order to retain the sanctity of the crash site, the memorial is about 10 kilometers away from it. The memorial, at 16°51 euro squared 53.748 euro cubed and 11°57 euro squared 13.362 euro cubed is constructed of black rock in the shape and dimensions of the DC-10 airplane inside a compass, with one of the plane's wings used as a compass point, and over 170 broken mirrors to reflect the victims of the crash. The memorial is visible in aerial imagery on Google Maps. Maps, http, www.buzznova.fr. See also: List of accidents and incidents on commercial airliners, Pan Am Flight 73, Air India Flight 182, Pan Am Flight 103, Pierre Par Copyright Anne. References. External links: Final report, English translation of final report prepared by Haro Ranta, Aviation Safety Network, Appendices. Les Familles de l'Attentat du DC-10, Reynolds, Paul. UTA 772, The Forgotten Flight. BBC. Tuesday 19 August 2003. Additional photos of memorial and its construction.